Hello, welcome to the Rooms with Ronald podcast, brought to you by the Multifamily Media Network. I'm your host, Ronald Harrington. In 2023, I set an intention to shop 100 apartment communities to see how leasing was evolving around the country. Rooms with Ronald was born out of that experience. In this series, I share my experiences and engage in meaningful conversations with other professionals in the industry as we discuss all things related to leasing and marketing. Join in as we expand the Rooms with Ronald experiment. Welcome to another exciting episode of Rooms with Ronald. I'm your host, Ronald Harrington, and in this podcast, we talk all things leasing and marketing. And boy, do I have an exciting show for you. I'm going to do my best to keep the train moving, but I am joined by industry icon, Christi Wedel, who is the training manager of soft skills for Mill Creek Residential. Christi, thank you so much for joining me today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ronald. I am super excited to be here with you all today. I'm excited about the topic. We are going to have a wonderful time together.
I know. I just hope I can keep the train moving because we're going to be bouncing ideas. There's going to be a lot of takeaways from today's episode. So I hope our listeners are ready. So let's give them what we're going to talk about. You know, I've been shopping properties. You've been doing this a long time, and leasing has changed a lot. And, you know, I've been doing this for 10 years. It's changed a lot in the last 10 years. It's changed a lot in the last 4 years, and it's still changing a lot today. And I think we're seeing a shift, right? So we've spent so much time. We have so many new people in this industry who all they known was the high demand, low supply, right? We didn't have to sell anything. If you had a home, it's yours, right? I need it right now. But now we're starting to see this vacancy drop. You know, we're at an average about 92% vacancy across the country. And we're going back to fighting for every lead that comes in. Or we should be. Not always happening, right? And I think our leasing professionals and our on-site teams have forgot what it really means to roll out the red carpet and to treat every prospect like gold. And not only in prospects, but even residents, right? It has to continue. That red carpet should be swept every single day and just be right there in front of your office. So what is your first tip for rolling out the red carpet, Christi?
Well, I love this topic. Really, there's nothing that I think is more important in our industry than our leasing professionals. They are the voice and the first people that your guests and prospects come in and see. And so, you know, I don't think that Christi Wedel, and thank you for calling me industry icon. I don't think that is true, but we'll go with it. I thank you and I appreciate that. But I think really having been around for 150 years in this industry, I think what has happened is just what you said. I think that some of us of a certain age have kind of gotten away from what we learned as far as the basics. And then there is this whole generation, if you will, that came in right after COVID or during COVID that just did not get that sort of leasing 101, if you will, that basic in-person training of, you know, gosh, you stand up and you greet your prospect and then you possibly shake their hand and really dive deep into those questions and not just go over the guest card questions. So I think what I would say, number one, is roll out the red carpet by knowing your customer before they walk through the door. So gone are the days, most of the time, where someone's just going to walk in and say, you know, I just happen to be walking down the street and this looks like a cool place. Maybe I want to live here one day. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, Ronald, but you and I both know typically that person has shopped you and a few other of your comps, and they're ready to make a decision. So to your point, when someone walks in, we should roll out the red carpet because they are gold. We know that they are very possibly going to lease with us. So with AI and with the technology that we have, getting to know our customers prior to them coming in, finding out their wants and their needs is really a non-negotiable at this point. I would take it a step further, Ronald, and I would say we need to get to their why. Why are they moving? What is the reasoning behind their move? What are they passionate about as far as their new home? So that would be my number one tip in a very, very long Christi Wedel kind of way.
No, I love that. So, but you said something that made me think about, they didn't get the leasing training. I have my own thoughts, but I want to hear your thoughts. Do you think that we as an industry has shifted away from hiring salespeople to hiring more customer service focused people?
That is a great question. And I would say it's possible. And the reason I say that is I have seen over the past few years, probably 2 to 3 years, being in the training space, as you know, where we work very closely with HR. And I would say that there's been a lot of people with hospitality background. So to your point, customer service. And really just, I think, Ronald, if you have the personality, you have the desire to really help people and to get to know people, you can come from any industry and be successful as a leasing professional. I know that for me, one of the most successful leasing professionals I ever hired was a retail manager at a store in the mall. Do malls still exist? Sure. But yeah, I found her in the mall and she ended up promoting and promoting and promoting, and she's very successful today. And, so I think people can come from all different types of career paths.
Yeah. And, I think like my philosophy is, yes, we have shifted away from sales into customer service because we have a lot of people who think that sales and customer service are the same thing. And
right.
Not, right. And why the person at the mall probably worked well is because they were still selling a product.
Right.
And so I think back to leasing, and like when we interview, we don't ask them sales related questions a lot of the time. We ask them conflict resolution. We ask them all the customer service things. And so they probably don't, understand that. What do you mean I have to ask someone to put down a $250 holding or an admin fee and a $55 application they're just going to do it. A lot of the things that you said kind of come into this, like evaluating the first impressions. And you know the story. You've been following along with me. I haven't had a lot of great first impressions. So what does that first impression kind of mean to you?
Well, for me, it means everything. And this particular type of training has been my jam, if you will, for several years, about 5 years now. The leasing role, to me, I'm very, very passionate about it. I love all the roles within our industry, but I love the leasing role. And what I really love about it is watching other people, their lights coming on in training and leasing training. And so for me, I think that we have to do things that we either haven't ever been taught to do, or we sort of got away from during COVID. And so I think back to COVID, right? Like there was this sort of plexiglass between leasing professional and customer. So physically and metaphorically speaking, they were separated. And the same thing with telephone calls. It was like, well, we just don't have anything right now. We didn't learn how to role play and close the lease on the phone and all of those sort of industry jargon things that we like to use. But I think what we can do now is we can stand up from our desk when someone comes in. I know that sounds crazy, but I know, Ronald, you know this firsthand from all of the communities you visited in your tour de Ronald. But simply standing up from behind your desk and walking around and greeting your customer, your prospect, that shows an enormous amount of respect. And it shows that you care. And, pro tip, obviously, the most important thing is to know their name. If you know their name and you stand up and go to greet them sort of at the door or when they're on their way to your desk, you are legions above your competition. Wouldn't you say, Ronald?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, knowing their name, but not only that, like, this is going to sound really obvious. Tell them your name. Like, there are so many times I toured with people that I didn't know the person's name until they hand me a business card or I got a follow-up email or something, like whatever, right? And I was just like, am I talking to the robot? Like, I want to know your name because we don't wear name badges anymore, right? And it sounds so silly, right? Like, tell the person your name. Like it's like going on dating. You wouldn't go meet somebody and not know their name. we're dating here in multifamily. So what are some things that we can do? So let's say maybe we have some listeners who are working in a luxury community. What are some quick, easy tips that they could do to maybe elevate their first impressions of the property when a prospect walks in?
Sure. Well, I think what we were just talking about really is, runs the gamut of luxury and everything else that's out there, right? And so I think with the luxury communities, what we can do is we can think outside the box and offer things that are appropriate to your customer, right? So if someone's coming in and they're going to spend 6, 5, 4, 3,000, however much it is in your market for a studio apartment, I think that we should really, I keep saying, roll out the red carpet. What does that mean? Well, maybe, I don't know, whatever your budget looks like, maybe we could offer sips of champagne and some dark chocolate. And I feel people's eyes proverbially rolling right now. Why not? Maybe we serve them in those tiny little champagne looking cups, right? Little flutes. But, I think it's back to basics too, Ronald, like you were talking about. I think that customer service piece of it is going to be, it should be true and it should be held, whether it's A class or otherwise, right? I think everyone deserves to be treated with kindness and respect. And in 2024, let's face it, there's not a lot of kindness going on around us, and your prospects and customers, they feel that same thing that we feel. So just offering them the kindest way that you can greet them and making conversation with them, getting to know them, back to getting to know their why, that takes that level of questioning a little bit deeper than that guest card. And I think that those are things that we can offer just right off the bat that might elevate that experience for your luxury.
Well, I think that can be, I don't even know that that's necessarily luxury, right? I think that's just kind of across the champagne might be, but you can get some dark chocolate. If anyone's listening and they want to know the way to my heart, it's an espresso machine that you can just give me cups of like little espresso shots. Like you can skip the champagne, just give me the Nespresso. We will be good. We'll be good to go. And to your point, I think something else like that, understanding their why and going really deeper, it emphasizes is this emotional connection, right? And I think like we're lacking that. And we hear, right, like AI and we hear all this. I'm like, but the HI has to be there too. The high has to be there too. And the high is you, right? You actually saying hi and then you having your own human intelligence. So I think like it kind of like built into that, and you show people I'm not any different than you are. You need a place to live. Let's talk about it. I thought it was funny. You slipped up and said units. You didn't say apartment complex. So I didn't have to come across the screen and like strangle you.
Oh gosh, no. Hopefully I think that was scrapped from my vocabulary in the 90s.
Yeah. But it's like words, right? Like I think saying, when do you want to move in? It sounds very stressful. That is just so stressful to me. So why not say, when do you want to be settled in? That changes it, right? It makes this wording, it's all about that wording. So it changes that person's perception of you. And now all of a sudden they're like, you made me feel different in a good way, right? We spend so much time, like we had to treat everyone the same, right? We had to treat them the same. We can make every single person feel like a very individualized person, a very important person, whatever you look at it from that, just from the get-go, right? So we got them at our desk. We got the question down. We know what they're looking for. We know all these things, right? So let's start talking about the tours.
My favorite part. Well, all of it's my favorite, but so the tour is something that is really it's so important. Again, if you don't have that particular apartment home, I have to throw this out there because this happened recently. A friend of mine was looking and she shared her experience with me. If you don't have that particular home or that particular layout to show, by all means, offer to show something. Whether it's a model. I mean, gosh, back in my day, if we had, most apartment communities had at least it's like a 2-bedroom model, and you would show that and then walk through the home and show, okay, so this will be different and this and this and that. And so, but recently, and you can probably speak to this too, Ronald, with all the tours that you've done, that just doesn't happen. It's almost like we're in this robotic, oh gosh, I don't have that floor plan. Okay, I guess we're moving on. Sorry, see ya. And it's just a missed opportunity for that customer to lease with you, because really what that person is looking for is that connection, to know that when they move in, that their concerns and cares will be taken care of. That when something does happen, or when they have an issue or anything happens on the community, that you're going to listen. And if you're proving that from the very beginning on that tour, in the initial conversation, you're legions above your competition. And so one of the things that I really like to hone in on when you're touring is, think about it like this. If you are going to the movies on a Friday night with your BFF, your partner, your friend, your spouse, whatever, right? Your kid for me. And you are walking up to the movies together. Would that person, your friend or fill in the blank, be walking behind you? Probably not, because that would be weird, right? I wouldn't be going like, oh, hey, Ronald. So, how was your weekend and how was your week? And that's weird. That doesn't feel right. For safety reasons too. I just don't like people walking behind me, and I don't think it's a good idea. But also for building that connection, having someone right beside you, and kind of, even if they don't position themselves, it's on us to sort of turn or pivot or slow down or speed up a little bit to where we're side by side with that person. Psychologically, what that tells that person is that you're on their team. You're in it with them. You're not leading them. You're not walking ahead of them, but that you're there to make that connection and help them find the perfect apartment home.
Yeah. And I think it's all about making that connection, right? Like, people buy from people they like. You equate it going to the movies. I equate it to when you invite people over to your house, you know what I mean? Like, you interact with them. You're not 900 steps in front of them. And I'm a very visual person, and I wanted to be an actor for a very long time. So I used to treat every prospect in my head, they had their own little storyboard, right? They're looking for, and all movies have storyboards, right? Cartoons have it, but even action movies, what scene is going to be next in the order that you film it. And I think that's how I treat this whole leasing model, right? It's what's the story? And I want to get to know them as a person. I don't want to be sold to. Nobody wants to be sold to, right? You really need a 2-bedroom apartment. Interact. When I'm on a tour, I know your favorite wine. I know what you like. I know where you're going to dinner at. We're talking about, how, I like to spill wine on carpet. So I don't like carpet in the apartment. I engage this storytelling just like listening to a podcast, right? You don't listen to a podcast and all that the podcaster does is state facts after facts after facts. There is this storytelling, this art of like weaving the story into the whole process. And I know you're super good at that.
Oh, well, thank you. I enjoy it. And I think that, that just taking it back a really high level, I think to be successful in this role, you really have to love it. It's not one that you can fake. However, I do have to say, you don't have to be super extroverted. Like I would say Ronald and I are pretty extroverted. That is not a requirement. And in fact, sometimes people just, and I fully admit this, I was too much for some people, but I would have counterparts in the office that were, a little more introverted, maybe a little quieter, maybe not as boisterous. And, I would invite them to come on the tour with us and have them do the talking. So it's all about just making things work for your customers. What's going to make them feel the most comfortable? Because, fun fact, it's not about me, it's about them. And, if you're not really great at on the cuff conversations like Ronald and I are having literally live right now, that's okay. These are skills that you can learn. You can learn to ask really deep, strategic questions, not personal questions, but questions that get to that person's why. And you can do that even if you're not, this is not something that you're not like, well, Christi, I've been doing it this way for 4 years. I don't know. I'm really kind of introverted. But if you love this and you really want to do this as a career, then read a book, listen to Ronald's podcasts.
I'm gonna let people in on a secret here, right? You mentioned I'm extroverted, but I actually am only extroverted at work, right? When I'm here, like I am in the zone, I am extroverted. This is like, and a lot of times, like people will see me in trainings, they'll see me on video, they'll see me out at conferences, and they'll be like, "Oh my God, I bet you're so much fun to hang out with after hours." And I'm always like, "I'm not," and everyone's like, "Oh no, no." And so like I remember when I lived in Sacramento, I went out with some coworkers for the first time. We went out to a bar and that kind of thing. And they're like, "Where's Ronald?" And I'm like, "I'm right here." They're like, "No, this is not you. Like, who are you?" Because I am a super introvert. Like outside of work, like I don't like to make small talk with people. I'm not comfortable making small talk with people. I like have no self-confidence. So I'm never just going to go up to someone that I don't know in a bar or like out in public and have a conversation with you. And it's so funny that people, they see this persona because that's what it is. So like if you're like me and you're the introvert, just think about it as this is the best paid acting job that you're going to get. You can turn it on, you can have this persona just like Beyonce has like Sasha Fierce and all these people have all these different things that come out, right? You can turn it on and you can turn it off. And I think that's why it makes it so much easier for me to sell is because if I have someone who's a little bit quieter, I just go and pretend I'm out at the bar and like, okay, what am I going to do? And then if I have someone who's over the top, I know how to be over the top. Shocker.
Well, it's funny that you say that. And, I don't want to get us too far off track because I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours. But, it's funny you say that because actually I was telling someone the other day, I've become the extroverted introvert, meaning to your point, and we saw each other at NAA this past, back in June. And oh my goodness, toward the end of the day, I'm like, I need to go back to my room and like turn everything off and close the shades and just relax. No music, no, nothing at all. No Facebook, no chat, no, nothing at all. Just to relax. And that's how I kind of, can, but I have to do that nowadays. I have to like unwind and whew. Yeah, it's a thing. But yeah, to your point, no matter what your personality is or if you're extroverted or introverted or your sales, or you really are more the techie person. And the thing is that do you care about the human beings that are walking into your office? And I would venture to say, yes, if you're in this role, that's why you got the job you're in.
We hope.
We hope. Fingers crossed. If not, probably maybe, okay, well, we won't go there. But there's always room to grow. And I love that one of our core values is continuous improvement. But I think it's so important, especially in 2024, when we have so much noise going on around us. We're in election year and this and that and, all the things, right? I think it's important to really dig in and find out, what is it that I love to do at my job, and what can I improve on? And what book can I read? What podcast can I listen to make that happen? Because honestly, Ronald, and you and I both know this, in 2024, YouTube has everything. If there's anything you want to learn to do better, it's right at your fingertips.
I don't use YouTube anymore. It's like TikTok, right? There's that whole
TikTok.
I learned it on TikTok.
Yeah,
that's a hashtag, right? Like I learned it on TikTok. I learned I was wearing my neck pillow wrong this whole time.
I love it.
We're talking about these techniques. So let's talk about, the foundation, right? And it goes back to active listening. So I would love to kind of hear, how do you kind of teach this to the people you work with about active listening when it comes to like needs and wants and all of that?
It's such a great question and so poignant right now. Again, I keep mentioning in 2024, just with everything going on and not just everything going on, but at everything at our fingertips right here, like literally all the dings, all the things, all the connections, all the, oh my gosh, I got a text. Oh my gosh, I got an email. Oh my gosh, I got a TikTok. I got a notification on the book face, right? And so with all of that going on, it's like, it's taking a step back and going, okay, what is it that's really, really, what's really important to me? And, I think again, that right now, one of the things that I like to focus on is telling people to pause after a couple of seconds when someone talks, when someone says something to you. And if you're a leasing professional and you have your prospect, your customer sitting in front of you, I was the worst at this. I got so good at my job, I thought, that I would anticipate their needs, right? I even used to say that was my battle cry. I can anticipate everyone's needs. No, that just means that you think you know what's on everyone's mind, and you're not that special, Christi. But yeah, I think it's important when someone's in front of you and you ask a question. Let's say, Ronald, how did you word that earlier when you said, when are you looking to move? Or when would you
like to be settled in?
When would you like to be settled in? So if you ask that question and they answer and they say, oh, I don't know, maybe, within the next few months, pause for a second or two, which is so hard for me to do, Ronald. And this is what I do when in the training. I said, I'm the worst. So I know that it's hard, but I also am practicing it and really trying. This even works in your regular life, like with your kids, your spouse, your whatever, fill in the blank. But taking that conscious pause and just not taking that for face value, but maybe asking a qualifying question after that, right? So saying, okay, you said a couple months. So what is it that has you making this decision today? What's changed in your life recently that's making you make this change, or that you're wanting to make this change? Talk to me about talk to me about where you currently live. What do you love about it? What do you hate about it? And after asking each one of those questions, it's actively listening, which means I have to close my mouth, which is not very easy to do, right? So I need to close my mouth, listen, because sometimes if we don't take a couple of seconds, 1 or 2 seconds, we're going to miss what they're about to say. They may have been just about to say something else, like something heavy, Ronald, like probably in a couple of months, because I'm going through a divorce. And then your empathy, you can pull out the empathy card and be very genuine and say, I'm so sorry that you're going through that. I hope that I'll be able to help you find the perfect apartment home today. And sometimes it's just adjusting our volume a little bit, because if you shared something with me that was very hurtful, possibly, or just either way, no matter who is encouraging that divorce, either way, it's devastating, right? It's life-changing. And so just by changing my tone from the, hi, welcome in, how are you, to the, wow, I'm really sorry that you're going through that. It tells people that you're listening, and you're listening with intent.
You say pause. I call it pause for a cause, right? Like sometimes the cause is so my brain can catch up. And when people, I love how vague people are, right? In a few months. Oh, okay. So let's talk about what a few months means for you, right? Or on the flip side, it's like as soon as possible. Great. I have one that I can move. You can get, we have some available today. Oh, no, like in 2 or 3 weeks, or like 4 weeks, or so understanding what those time frames even mean to them, right? It allows you to ask these questions and open up. And a lot of times you find out so much more information, right? Like, oh, I'm looking for a few months. Oh, why in a few months? Oh, I'm trying to save money. I'm, living with my friend for free right now. Oh my gosh, that, you're probably ready for your own space. Let me kind of identify, see what we have. Then I might be able to get you to move in a little bit earlier because we have this amazing special and things like that. But it all goes back to asking those probing questions. And I don't know that I like the word probing because it just sounds like we're trying to be all up in their business. And I don't want to be up in there, but I need to know a couple more things. Like, what is it that you like to do for fun? Maybe I'm trying to understand, what has you in this area? So things like that. So how do you feel about probing questions?
Well, I think that it's all about being genuine. And I think it's about building on the answers that they've already given you, right? So if they're giving you very vague answers to the questions, then I'm probably going to ask some qualifying questions, if you will. But I can also tell when people are standoffish and they're like, ugh, a salesperson. I see right through you. I know you're going to ask me for some money, so let's not pretend to be friends. And so I will, sort of switch it to, okay, professional only. Let me just ask the questions, and that type of thing. And that's how I train to it as well is, just be genuine and be yourself. And if that person is not wanting to be chatty, then that's okay too. Just find out what you need to find out. And then as you're digging, you might find that they open up a little bit.
Which I think once we start asking these questions, and I think my problem with probing is because I think of interrogation, right? Like they're probing for information and that's very closed-ended, and I'm just having a conversation just like you know. But once we find these out, we can then start offering these personalized solutions to the prospect that no one else is doing. No one has ever asked me why I need large closet space. Well, I mean, you need to know that I have 67 dress shirts, 37 suit jackets, 40 pairs of shoes, 17 North Face jackets, whole bunch of pairs of jeans, right? All these different things, right? That should be this indicator that, hey,
I love that.
Can't go to the smallest closet that we have. Or, what's that? How much money are you looking to spend? What's your comfortable desired range? Because now I can maybe talk you into a 2-bedroom because you know what? You don't have to put a bed in a second bedroom. You can totally put a clothes rack in there and you could have a walk-in Carrie Bradshaw closet.
I love that. Now, were those numbers actually correct for you, Ronald? Because it sounds like maybe you do have that much.
I do have lots. So we have a 3-bedroom house where I live and then a coat closet. I have clothes in all 3 bedrooms. We have a California closet, and I have half the things, so many things now that when I have my clothes on, I've pulled the rack out of the closet, it's fallen. And so that's one of the first things I ask when I go on tours now is how sturdy is this rack? And I just get this dumbfounded look of what do you mean? How sturdy? I've never had. So then I go through the whole oh, this is why I currently live. And they're if it falls, maintenance will come fix it. And I'm just you weren't listening. It could have. But, it was not a personalized solution to me.
There was no active listening there, or no active comprehension, I guess, really.
Yeah. So let's talk about everyone's favorite thing not to do, which is role playing. I love it, right? I worked in a tanning salon, and it was 100 years ago. But I worked in a tanning salon, and one of the things in the tanning salon was called ATCS. You acknowledge their concern, you do a temperature check, you then support the facts of why you should buy lotion, and then you plant the seed for that. So, but we had to role play every week. I mean, if there was a form, Christy, a form. I know people probably don't know what that is, but we had to fill out a form. The key holder, whoever you're working with, they would do the role play, and then you both signed it. Multifamily people hate role playing. I talk about it in leasing, and they're role play? Why? It's just so not natural. And then I'm well, great, you're not doing it with me because I'm a super hard. So let's talk about some role play. What recommendations do you have?
Well, I think that it's super important right now in 2024. I keep saying that, but it's so true. In light of, going back to the beginning of our conversation and, basically people who were hired on or began their career in 2020 and beyond, we used to have for lots of years, as soon as you came on board as a leasing professional, you would go to I'm just giving an example of one of the experiences, but you would go to at least a 1-day sort of in-person all-day training. And then it switched over to, maybe it was virtual, that type of thing, but
Which
did some
work. Right. We've
right. I'm not a huge fan of that in that particular, for role playing, at least. I don't think that it's very, very effective, but we do the best that we can because a lot of us are, remote and we're all over the place. And so we just do the best we can. But I feel what you can do at your office is role play with let's say that you are a leasing professional. And again, back to, I just don't feel comfortable making conversations with people I don't know. This is weird. I'll give you an example. Ronald will be my daughter. She's 27 years old. And one day she said to me, I was talking about somebody at work, and this was years and years ago, probably at least 5 years ago, prior to COVID. So 6 years ago, we'll call it. And I said, gosh, honey, you're not going to believe this, but I went, to the property, one of our properties, and I went out there to talk to one of our gentlemen who was really struggling with, he kept failing the in-person shops. But I said, this person's lovely and everyone loves him and he gets great reviews, and I could not figure it out. So I went out to the community and I walked him to the model and I said, okay, talk to me, friend, what's going on? And he almost started crying. He goes, Christi, I don't know how to have a conversation on the phone. I grew up texting, even with my mom. I never had to create conversation. I never had to say, hello, how are you? And how's the weather? And all of those things. He goes, I don't know how to do it. And he was almost in tears. So I was telling my daughter this, and she said, Mom, he's not wrong. My entire generation grew up on texting. You know that. You got me a phone when I was 12. And I was like, a light bulb went on in my head. And I was like, oh my word. Like she's right. And so role playing with someone in your office is 100% normal. It should be normal. And it should be, I would say, Ronald, like you said, weekly. Take those difficult conversations that you've had with your prospects over the past, 60 days, 30 days, whatever you can remember, and role play that scenario with your counterparts, with your supervisor, with whoever wants to sit and listen to you, and then come up with solutions. Okay, what can we do differently next time? How can we provide that person with better customer service? How can we listen better to that person?
I love that. Well, Christi, we're about time, and I want to make sure I have just one more question for you. So I'm going to say Christi's 3 easy wins to win over a prospect.
Oh gosh. Okay, here we go. I got it in my head. I have to whittle them down from like 500. I would say having eye contact and maintaining eye contact. If that does not work for you, some people who are neurodiverse, that's my jam. ADHD or autistic may not be able to do the whole eye contact thing, but you can look in their general direction. And I think that eye contact, standing up and greeting, shaking hands, if that's your thing, do whatever your policies are and whatever you've agreed with your supervisors, keep it consistent. And then I think also I would say just make friends with them in a way that's professional. So find out what they want, what's important to them, their needs, their wants, their desires, where they're coming from, why it's important, that they find the perfect apartment home. And then we didn't get to this, but I would say follow up. Ronald, can we get a woohoo for follow up? Because nobody follows up.
Can I make it can I even say a step further and say, can we do personalized follow up instead of automated follow up that is a whole thing in itself, right?
Yes.
I'm like, that's not a follow up. That's just a reminder.
Right. Yeah. Even if you have an AI or a follow up in your PMS system, follow it up with a personalized thank you, and just talk about the tour, some things that you talked about in your tour to personalize it.
Well, Christi, thank you so much. We could have went on for hours and hours and hours. And I actually did lose a little bit of track of time. And then I looked over and I had that moment of panic. But if people wanted to continue the conversation with you, they wanted to reach out, they have some questions, where do they find you?
Sure. So Christi Wedel on LinkedIn, or you can email me at cwedel@mcrtrust.com.
Perfect. We will have all of that linked. Well, Christi, thank you so much for bringing your insights and your passion and your energy. It's not very often that I find someone who can match me energy for energy level. So this has been a great conversation on those easy wins and rolling out the red carpet for our prospects. You have been listening to Rooms with Ronald, a podcast on everything leasing and marketing. Until next time, guys, happy leasing. Thank you for tuning in today. I hope I left you with some fresh ideas or a new perspective.
Leasing and marketing are evolving rapidly, and Rooms with Ronald is committed to offering a place to hear about those changes. We also celebrate and acknowledge the fundamentals of exceptional service that will never go out of style. So, if you enjoyed this episode, please like, comment, or subscribe. Visit multifamilymedianetwork.com to learn more about our other exceptional industry podcasts, call pieces, and sponsorship opportunities.